Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024. It is Saturday afternoon, August 3rd. It is 8:03 p.m. Eastern Time. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and with me, as usual, is the great Alex Kozora, fresh off of yet another trip out to Saint Vincent College in Latrobe, which was fresh off of a Friday Night Lights practice at Latrobe Memorial Stadium. So we're double dipping today on this, or tonight on this Saturday night. Alex, happy Saturday, and I'm glad you managed to stay dry relatively these last 2 days.
Yeah, Dave, happy that I didn't need to use the Right in the Rain waterproof paper quite as much as I thought I would need to. So happy overall with that. The Friday Night Lights practice was super intense, super physical, and Tomlin has not in the past gone pads the day after, but today I think because the Friday night practice was just almost barbaric and so quality as well, that he was in a good mood in a padless practice Saturday. So a lighter session Saturday. Obviously, we did not do our Friday show because the report went up so late last night. So we'll try to mix in both practices, but the focus will probably be more so on Friday because that was the main event.
All right, this is one of the toughest shows that we do, the special edition podcast every year, because we do try to, it's tougher on you than it is me because you're having to use instant recall for two practices and on very little sleep at that. But before we get going, as always, we need to give a shout out to our sponsor of these special edition podcasts, and that would be Touring Plans, touringplans.com, and to find folks Lynn Testa and company. People that listen to this show should know a lot about them, but for those that might just be tuning in, Alex, tell them about Touring Plans.
Longtime sponsor of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage. That is the place you want to go to book your upcoming trip to Disney World, Disneyland, and also the Disney Cruise Line, which I know is very popular as well. With Touring Plans, you'll receive access to their crowd calendar to know the days and times when the parks are the busiest and least busy. Plans to avoid waiting in lines for hours and hours just to ride that one ride. Insider restaurant reviews, how to save money on tickets, and just overall tips to have the best experience possible. That's with touringplans.com. Go to the website, again, touringplans.com, and tell them Steelers Depot sent you, and we thank them for their continued support of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage.
We sure do. And if you're on Twitter or /X at Touring Plans, drop them a note. Just tell them you appreciate them sponsoring these special edition podcasts, if you wouldn't mind. All right, Alex, housekeeping time. I don't think we have any transactions on Friday or Saturday, I don't believe, to discuss. And I guess it would be better, instead of recapping injuries for 2 days, just what's the latest coming out of Saturday's practice?
Sure, I agree. Just a good place to talk about where the team is currently at. Not practicing on Saturday. Kyron Johnson, the outside linebacker, still with that hamstring injury. Braylon Arnold has missed the last 2 days. Don't know why that is, but he has not practiced. Jeremiah Moon also has missed the last 2 days, and no idea what's going on there. Patrick Queen, he got dinged in 7-on-7 during the Friday practice, like a foot or ankle. It's minor. He's fine. He was limping a little bit in the practice on Friday. Held out today. Not surprised by that. Wouldn't be shocked if he was held out on Sunday, but not concerned about that. Couple guys getting rest, and Isaac Seumalo, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward. Typical stuff there. 3 rest days for Seumalo in the 9 practices, but managing him and giving extra reps to Spencer Anderson. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been limited the last 3-4 days. He's been in 7-on-7. He's stressed, but not in team. Mike Tomlin says he's fine. I think Minkah said he's fine. They're just giving other safeties and really Cam Sutton extra reps. Russell Wilson, status quo. No update there. Has yet to throw a pass in the team period. One piece of good news, Rodney Williams returned full for Saturday's practice with that shoulder injury. It did help. This was a padless practice. We'll see if he's going to do the full participation thing for the Sunday session, which will be in pads and sounds to be pretty physical. Mike Tomlin said goal line and short yardage will be part of that practice. So we'll check on Williams' status, but he is progressing.
All right, good. We'll definitely pay attention to this thing. And with Russell Wilson, you expecting status quo for Sunday, and then obviously Monday day off, and then Tuesday being the next kind of significant day to see whether or not he's able to finally start going full?
In terms of your phrase, lines in the sand, I'll use Tuesday as the next line in the sand. I know Wilson said he's feeling better. There's been a ton of reporting today. You can probably speak to the source better than I can, but I believe reporting from Tom Pelissero or somebody saying he's going to go to the doctor here soon, get checked. There's optimism that Wilson can practice in full sometime next week. So we'll still check tomorrow, of course, but Tuesday might be the day to watch.
All right. Let's see here. Alex, you have been to a lot of these Friday Night Lights practices over the years. I mean, a lot of them. And I don't think that you have a scorecard that ranks these things overall. But at least from sitting here in my mom's basement in Las Vegas, Nevada, it seems like that might have been one of the better ones that has occurred in previous times. Am I correct in that assessment? I mean, it was a physical right from the start, a tone setter. Seemed like a lot of action, a lot of, especially offense did well. Where would you rank that if you had to, off of recent memory?
It is easy to be prisoner of the moment, and there have certainly been physical Friday Night Light practices in the past. It is really the marquee event of training camp, and it's always the second edition of backs on backers and O-line, D-line, and sometimes even goal line work. That was not the case this past Friday, but it was up there. I mean, I think it's fair to say it's the most physical one in quite some time. And the backs on backers in particular, which really was the main event and the most physical part of all. I'll say this, and again, maybe I'm forgetting a past year. There have been some certainly intense battles in years past, but in terms of the actual just backs on backer session, that was the most intense, most physical, most chaotic, just most nuts session ever. And did not have the greatest vantage point of it. I was on the other side, on the away side, but you could just feel the intensity, the energy from even that far away. And just watching it, I mean, it just became less of a football thing and more of a war type thing for a moment there. So I know the videos are floating around. People have seen them, but to feel that energy and what things were like, I mean, I don't remember seeing anything to that level in backs on backers before.
Can you walk through a couple of highlights just from that session? And once again, I know your vantage point wasn't great, but the highlighted battles?
Yeah, I still had a good feel of what happened. I just didn't necessarily get to maybe hear some of the commentary, but you could see body language alone in terms of how guys were acting. I mean, the main events, and it's been the guys that poked the hornet's nest, Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts, the way they did, that created the O-line scrum after the hit on Justin Fields earlier this week. It was Queen and Harris going at it the first rep, and I don't know who threw who down, but they both went to the ground like wrestling takedown style, and they go again, and they're jawing and going back and forth. Then you got Roberts and Warren, and Roberts won the first rep with a bull rush through Warren. They go again, and Warren stones Roberts and just great anchor and throws him down and running his feet. And Warren's hot, and guys are jumping in, and Mike Tomlin's trying to break it up. And so that was the main event when tempers were flaring at its highest point. And then I would just say beyond that, in terms of who did well in the draw, I thought Darnell Washington was excellent. I have him winning 6-0 in his 6 reps that he took, and that came against Highsmith, Herbig, and Leal. So it wasn't necessarily against third stringers and backups and guys that you think, Washington could easily handle. So, again, prisoner of the moment type stuff. But I thought Washington did as well in that drill as I've ever seen a player do in backs on backers.
I think I saw some video of a couple of good reps by Leal. One was against the new backup tight end, and I'm trying to remember who the second one was against. Michael Pruitt. was second. So a couple of tight ends, I think Mike Tomlin had stacked them up against it. I thought Leal did well in a close-up video on that. Okay, another assumption here on my part. We'll start with the quarterbacks here, obviously, and it seems like Justin Fields is stacking some nice days together at this point, specifically Friday Night Lights. I know obviously it was a padless practice on Saturday, but it seems like it feels like his performances are getting better, more consistent as things are going on here. Is that correct?
You're right. He's ascending. I thought it was a rocky start, not terrible, but inconsistent first 2, 3, 4 days. And really since then, since the Pats came on, his play has really perked up and continually gotten better. Maybe, day to day, a little better one day, a little worse one day. But Friday, he really shined. If you care about camp stats, they're just kind of a good data point. They're not to say all end all. Camp stats have, a lot of context missing. But Fields, according to my charting, went 15 for 19, 135 yards and 4 touchdowns, including throwing 3 touchdowns and 7 shots, where the offense scored touchdowns on their first 6 plays. And so that was just the offense dominating that session. And that was great to see. So Fields has really developed a good rapport and chemistry with George Pickens. But I think more importantly, Fields has really become more consistent, more accurate, doing routine things routinely, which is what I criticized him for early on in camp, where there were some gimmies and plays he should have made that he missed. And so I've been impressed by that, by overall ball security, by going through reads and progressions, and just kind of doing the little things a bit more detailed than I think how he started training camp. The only real negative that I've consistently seen is him getting some passes batted down at the line of scrimmage. I think he talked about that here recently, I think earlier today, and he had, I think, one batted down today. He got picked by Beanie Bishop on a screen. So it's not been perfect, but I think it's fair to say his play has been continually ascending since the first few days of camp.
Good. You love to hear that. And once again, you hate to judge things by just a couple of Twitter clips, but I've seen a couple of out routes where it looked like nice accuracy and velocity and placement and timing on some of these things. So what is the most dangerous narrative, not narrative, but dangerous assumption at this point midway, because we're at the midway point right now, right? Of training camp.
Just past it.
What's the most dangerous assumption when it comes to what you've seen with Fields? Would it be that, the bullets aren't really flying yet from a pass rush situation? Is it, what would that be? What would be the dangerous assumption?
Just that it's training camp and it's not real inside stadium environments where there is no sacking of the quarterback and the quarterback can scramble, extend the play, and there's a different feel and tone in that sense of it all. And, Kenny Pickett had a great Friday Night Lights practice last year, and it didn't, translate. Great preseason, great in-stadium action, didn't translate. And so it's hard to assume, and I don't assume that, what Fields does now guarantees what he or anybody will do, good or bad, once the regular season or even once the preseason begins. But, I had high expectations for Fields going into training camp. I wrote an article trying to find the title of it right before training camp began that, expect Fields to have a strong preseason. Don't expect him to be the starter. I know there's still a lot of buzz and chatter about, is this a battle? And the longer you go and the more the field plays well, the more you understand that conversation can open up. I still am pretty confident that Russell Wilson will start week 1, but Fields has played well, and the physical talents that he so greatly has are on display routinely in practice.
Look, if Russell Wilson does not get back to full on Tuesday, it's hard to imagine Russell Wilson. Well, even if he does, it's kind of hard to imagine Russell Wilson playing in a Friday preseason game from where we sit right now. Would you agree?
I don't know if he can get, it's August 9th is the first preseason game. If he can get a couple reps in, I mean, he's still taking the mental reps of it all. I think he can pick up the offense. If he's, cleared medically, that's going to be the sticking point. But if he's cleared medically, I think he can get at least a series or 2 in, and that'll be valuable in-game reps to make up for some time missed in training camp.
All right, regardless of if Wilson plays or not in that first preseason game, because even if he does, he's not going to play long.
Sure.
I mean, from what you've seen leading up to this point, I mean, and assuming he has the personnel out there that he's mostly been working with as first team, which why wouldn't you? Because those guys all need work. You know, younger guys and Pickens, and I mean, you got a lot of new guys.
New offense, new system,
new offense, new system. I mean, we should be in for some entertainment. It feels like.
Yeah, I think Fields would basically play most, if not the entire first half, is kind of my assumption on it. We'll hear from Mike Tomlin, and he'll play out a game plan. And I know things are fluid based on how in-game circumstances and reps and successes and failures go. But yeah, I think, let's assume that Wilson plays in this game. He probably gets the first drive, maybe two. There's a 3-and-out the first drive. Then I think Fields comes in, plays the rest of the first half. Kyle Allen plays most of the second half. Maybe John Rice Plumlee gets a drive or two in the fourth quarter is kind of where I think things stand right now.
All right. Well, Fields seems to be elevating Kyle Allen.
I think he's more shoots than ladders, I think is kind of where this old board game is at. You got Fields climbing the ladder and Allen down the chute. Does that ring a bell? Did you play any shoots and ladders?
Oh, yeah. Dave? Yeah.
Making sure that's stuff.
Well, it wasn't my favorite game, but yeah, we played that as a kid.
Not mine either, but we had the board game. I think everybody kind of did. I mean, it's been some more mistakes. And today there was 1 in 7 shots that he threw back to Darnell Washington. It was a really kind of wild decision. I don't know if that was a Y leak thing or if Allen just decided, let's just throw it up to big Darnell and see if he can come down with it. He didn't. Averett had good coverage and broke it up. He had a really bad pick. Allen did over the middle. Never saw Thomas Graham in 7 shots today. It's not been terrible. I think he's still a veteran quarterback that's generally run the huddle and commanded things pretty well to get some good evaluation. Sometimes when you get those real young quarterbacks in, it's harder to get good evaluations because they're just trying to keep their head above water, and you get some really bad balls, uncompetitive plays, mistakes, and bobbled snaps, all those kinds of things. And it's kind of hard to evaluate the whole unit sometimes. Allen has generally avoided that, but I think he had a good start to camp, and then his play has come down since then.
All right. Anything from the quarterback position that notable on Saturday?
Yeah, just watching the connection between Fields and Pickens looking his way a ton, back-to-back touchdowns and 7 shots. And, they were one on linebacker. I think one was on Elliott. They went against corners, not in pads. The intensity ramped down. But certainly, and, why wouldn't you if you're the quarterback? Find 14 as much as you can because he's your best guy out there, obviously. So, but you're seeing that connection grow as those guys get more and more reps together.
Let's see. Running backs. Look, we know who Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are at this point, right? and what the physicality, obviously. Look, hat tip to Najee Harris at past the halfway of camp. I kind of wondered if he would even do anything during camp because of the contract situation, and if he did anything, I wondered what that would even look like there. But it looks like this guy is now. He hasn't talked to the media, and I don't blame him for that since showing up. At least I don't think he has. But he's done everything else that you would ask a teammate to do, right?
Yeah, and I had an article this morning I've been meaning to write and found some time with the later afternoon practice that for him and for Pat Freiermuth, those guys, I've really seen vocally at least leadership change. I think they've always been good teammates. I know Harris was kind of in a leadership role early in his career when those offenses in 21, 22 were really young, but just watching Harris, give some coaching points to running backs to have them finish their drills and their runs, or watching backs on backers, him getting hype for Jalen Warren, for Aaron Shamklin, who had a good rep against Peyton Wilson, just vocally, watching Harris kind of take on that role. And something actually Mike Tomlin talked about today when he was speaking with Kay Adams about him and Pat Freiermuth. I felt like he read my article or something about the vocal leadership.
Happen.
No, I'm literally sure Tomlin does not read it, but it's just funny that I wrote that and then Tomlin talks about that. So you're kind of seeing the alignment there. So yeah, Harris from a kind of vocal, really talk the talk and walk the walk. Harris is doing both.
All right. Walk me through the rest of that running back depth chart behind Najee and Jalen Warren.
Yeah, I still wish I had clarity. It just feels so messy. I mean, I think Edwards is back of the pack, but beyond that, it's still pretty tight between Ward and Pirine and Champlin, and Edwards is still in the mix as well. He's not out of this thing. I want to continue to see these guys get work. I thought Champlin held his own in backs on backers.
Is he the most physical of the group?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he's the biggest of the group. He's got a pretty big lower half. There's a little bit of Warren kind of comparison with him. I mean, I think Edwards is physical, but he's just a little slighter build overall. Ward is a slightly smaller guy, skinnier guy overall. I thought Ward looked good. They're working some gunner work on Friday, and he was getting off of blocks and staying clean. So you don't typically see running backs do gunner type stuff because they don't typically have the hand usage and hand fighting to shed blocks. But I thought Ward had a couple of good reps, and he's a guy with a special teams background, so that could be an asset to him. But this thing's still pretty fluid. I think special teams is going to be pretty important to try to determine some practice squad spots.
All right. Any news on Jack Coletto to report these last two practices?
Still getting fullback work. Nothing notable. Don't think he's really been targeted too much the last couple practices, and a lot of run stuff, obviously, when they're in 21 personnel. Getting special teams work. They worked a one-on-one tackling drill today, which is usually a really fun drill. It's kind of Oklahoma, like just 1v1, work the sideline, play inside out. Generally, that's been a live tackling session. But today, because they weren't in pads, it was just kind of two-hand touch and wrap up type stuff. And you're seeing Coletto get work. Their offensive guys get work. They're him, Des Fitzpatrick, Rodney Williams, Connor Hayward, because those guys can all be capable special teams guys. And Coletto's a former linebacker. He looked good in the drill, and so not surprised there. But want to see those guys get to work on special teams, because even for Coletto, especially for Coletto, that'll be valuable for his march to make the 53.
All right. After the first couple of episodes of the special edition of podcast, you were wanting more Darnell Washington. It feels like maybe somebody heard that show. I'm kidding. But since then, you've gotten a lot of Darnell Washington. How do you feel? What's the latest, the last couple of practices with him?
Yeah, he's coming along, and I understand. I mean, he's never going to be this top-end receiving tight end. He's not as athletic as he tested at the combine. He is a straight line, linear guy. But the good news is he's 6'7", and that in the line can be useful, and that can be useful in the red zone. And he's got more activity there. And I thought he was excellent in the backs on backers drill. I mean, obviously he gets a bit of advantage because of the size and strength and length, but still, I mean, you can lose those reps and you can worry about your leverage and keeping your pads down. And I thought overall, I think Highsmith tried to bull rush him and Washington stood him up. And so there were some really impressive reps. He's really focused on his blocking, and he's still going to be a primary blocker and run blocker for this team at that. But, hopefully that blocking has come along, because if he can do that, that just gives you more confidence, more reps, and naturally some more targets in the passing game, even though I think they'll still be far and few between and maybe more concentrated towards the red zone.
You learn anything new that you didn't already know about Michael Pruitt?
I mean, I didn't know a ton about him just because he was an off-season signing. We went through his tape, but it's not like I had, watched him intently for multiple seasons. But, in terms of his play, it's solid. It's steady. He's pretty much the same guy each day. He's got good pair of hands overall. He's pretty versatile. They're trying him on some special teams units. So a little bit of punt coverage. Rodney Williams is still going to be the better special teams guy, so it's going to be harder for Pruitt to win in that sense. But yeah, I think he's basically been, what I've expected.
All right, wide receiver. I've been itching to get to this the last couple of days.
Let me just note one thing on tight end. Just seeing those guys split out a lot, especially Freiermuth, some 3x1 backside stuff, which I know they've done in the past. It's not brand new to put 3 receivers to one side and a tight end backside to the other. But seeing Freiermuth play on his feet quite a bit, and when you're going to put out multiple tight ends, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, you probably have more opportunities to stand up a Pat Freiermuth. If you're an 11, generally you're not going to stand that guy up and have only 5 really down linemen unless it's third down or 2-minute type situation. So just be on the lookout for that. A lot of Freiermuth on his feet.
All right, itching to get to the wide receiver position after these last 2 practices. Look, George Pickens has been George Pickens throughout this thing, right?
Yeah, he's been good. I think he's come on stronger, the last several days. Again, finding that connection, that chemistry with Justin Fields, making catches above his frame, timing his jumps. He's a good leaper. He's got good hands, good body control, all those types of things. So it's been, really good and really productive, especially in those 7-shot periods.
And they're moving him around, right?
Yeah, they are. He's getting work in the slot, outside. They're working sacks and bunches. They've been pretty consistent in doing that to, free up him and, see less press coverage and free up everybody to get some cleaner releases. So I think Arthur Smith has done a good job in schematically to, help free up Pickens and just kind of make life a little bit tougher on defenses to distribute routes, identify people, those types of things.
All right, not that the next guy I really want to talk about, Van Jefferson, because not that he had a bad start of camp or anything like that, but it feels like, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like the last couple of practices here, I'm really hearing you. The other day you talked about, boy, George Pickens was busy. It feels like the last day and a half or 2 days that Van Jefferson has been busy, and he's been busy in a positive way too.
Yeah, in all the best ways. I'll have to tabulate some of his stats, but he's certainly been, active. Had a catch today, and I'm losing track if it was 11 or 11 or 7 shots, but there was a pass from Fields about 25 yards left sideline. Made a nice grab there. So yeah, I mean, he's been. Tomlin said it well. I know Tomlin was asked about that post practice today. Said he's consistent, high floor kind of a guy. He's versatile. He can block. I think he's a good enough athlete overall. It's not super deficient, not going to be top level, but has looked good in this environment, at least with a good pair of hands and finds the ball. And that's all, helpful. Again, is he ideal as your number 2? Might be a guy that looks better in camp. You get out there in the regular season and say, I hope you had a better number 2 than Van Jefferson, but he is firmly in the driver's seat right now for that number 2 spot until and unless they add somebody from the outside.
Are you feeling we went on a pretty good rant the other day about the wide receiver position, one of many that we've had this offseason here about the depth chart. Are you feeling a little bit better about this group after, because I think a couple of practices have happened since that?
Not really, to be honest with you. If Roman Wilson was healthy or making plays, you might feel a bit better. I mean, Jefferson has looked good, and I want to give him his credit for sure. But, I understand the camp environment is going to be one thing, and the NFL environment, in-stadium environment, September, October, November, December football is going to be different. So I still think there's a need, and this team should feel compelled to add somebody to really do everything they can to make this offense as potent as possible. When you see some tape, you see plays, you do naturally feel better than just theoretical that you had in May, June, early July. But I still think this team is needing to add another piece.
All right, in that next tier, that questionable tier, Dez Fitzpatrick and Quez Watkins. Quez, I think, had a nice 7-on-7, a nice ball from Fields that he laid out in the back of the end zone, contorted his body or whatnot, made a nice catch there. Is it just sporadic highlights, though, for him? And seems like Dez Fitzpatrick's at least showing up in some highlights.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's picked it up. He had a really nice catch in 7 shots. There was a ball from Kyle Allen that looked like it was going to be too far in front underneath the goalposts, and Fitzpatrick reached out with his hands and basically his fingertips to haul that one in, had a touchdown to end team practice on Saturday. So there's been some movement there in a positive direction after I think he had a really rough practice, I don't know, 4th day or something, where dropping some passes and just not being super active. Quez has been quiet, did have that nice catch in 7-on-7, but he has run behind Van Jefferson clearly. I'd say he's even behind Scotty Miller. Miller's, I think I mentioned this, but he's that speed is legit. I mean, he has run by so many corners in training camp and actually somehow even been overthrown, but that speed is, I mean, he is just blazing fast. I know he ran fast out of Bowling Green, but he is, when you burn Kalen Barnes, who's a 4.2 40 kind of guy, time speed and play speed can be different, but Miller's got wheels for sure. And I don't know what that means for his chances to make the 53, still fighting, but that speed is legitimate.
All right. Calvin Austin III, last 2 practices.
What catch did Calvin have? I'm trying to think back. Did he have a catch in Friday Night Lights or Saturday?
Seemed like he had one over left of the hash, just left of middle of the field, kind of, I don't know, like maybe a curl or something. 12 yards, and then I think he got 2-hand tag, but he added a couple of yards onto that. I think that's one of them that I remember seeing. I'm trying to recall anymore.
It looks like Friday he had a 20-yard catch here over the middle from Fields, and then a touchdown late in the team period. So there's been some more plays there. He looked in that one-on-one tackling drill. His change of direction was evident, making some guys miss, some good reps against Beanie Bishop, who did well otherwise in that drill, but struggled against Calvin Austin. So, there's been moments, but I don't think it's been as impressive as maybe others have talked about it.
All right. Anything else to add from the wide receiver position? I think we got the beef out of that, right?
Yeah, I think Jerry Jenkins has still made some plays, has had some decent reps as a gunner, gotten some praise there. He's just been more active in getting some reps and getting involvement. Deuce Watts had a nice catch today from John Rice Plumlee, but for guys like Watts and Copeland, it's been really tough to get some targets and some playing time. Jenkins has kind of elevated himself a rung up, like I mentioned before.
All right. The pads were on Friday night. What'd you learn about the offensive line? And are you still surprised of where, Fautano versus, what Broderick Jones is doing in the sides? Rant on that for a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably a time to talk about, because there's been a lot of discussion. And I had a tweet, and I didn't realize sometimes you kind of forget, how stuff can take off and the reaction from people. I'm not saying that it's a wrong reaction, but somebody asked me, how many reps has Broderick Jones gotten first team left tackle? And I said, very few. You can count them on one hand. And that's the truth. He got a couple reps today. Jones did maybe 2 or 3 over left tackle with Fautanu at right tackle. I don't know. I mean, what's your take on it, Dave? I'm just curious to get your thoughts. Jones has really been primarily first team right tackle. Even occasionally, Fautanu will come in and play right tackle, and Jones will run second team or just, not be in that rep. Dan Moore will stay at left tackle. I mean, we've had this thought, and Omar Khan talks about he's our franchise left tackle of the future. Why can't he be the franchise left tackle of the present?
Well, just from the outside look right now, and look, a lot of these still got 3 preseason games to go and half a training camp and all. You would think if the plan was for Broderick Jones to open up the season as a starting left tackle, you would start hearing at least you noting and talking more about more first team left or any left tackle reps, right?
I mean, I would agree with that logically, but this team has been so just kind of weird about Jones and flip-flopping him. And I mean, he got his first start at right tackle on a short week, just kind of suddenly last year. So
are they not concerned about him on the left side and saying, look, let's just get him some work on the right side in case we have to go that route, because we know Dan Moore's not going to play on that side. It feels like you would see more of it now, and maybe we will look back come week 1 and say, we overreaction by the basement blogger boys, but you would like to start hearing it happen soon. Would be my takeaway.
And that is trademark basement blogger boys. That is
okay.
Patent pending.
For life.
For life, yes. The number 4 or
the number 4.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page on that one. The number 4 for that. Yeah,
I've learned over the years about the hard assumptions after doing this through trade. Look, I enjoy learning through your eyes, and then obviously more so during the preseason about this. And look, I mean, we all learned a hard lesson last year during the preseason with the whole Kenny Pickett thing. But I mean, that's a totally different. I mean, you talk about a very important position, quarterback position, all like that. But I have learned over the years, okay, well, this guy is going to do this, and this guy is going to be here and that, and then you get to week 1 and you go like, oh, okay, that kind of thing. But all I will say at this point is I was hoping that by now we would see more of Broderick Jones, at least more snaps there. I don't care what team. I mean,
right.
It doesn't even sound like he's getting a lot of snaps, even any team. It's probably been Dylan Cook over there getting. How many more snaps does Dylan Cook have at left tackle than Broderick Jones does?
A couple hundred, probably at this point. I mean, he's been second team left tackle.
People's speakers out.
People driving off the road.
Higher pitch here. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Jones left tackle snaps. I can probably go back and try to count them. You can. At this point, it's probably been 10, if that. Again, a couple more today. He's probably sitting around 4 or 5 the first 8 practices or 7 practices, and add a couple more to that. He's got a big brace on his right arm. I don't know if that's new sometimes it's hard to tell with linemen because half of them wear knee braces and just as a either aesthetic or a comfort or security thing, even if they've never had knee issues before. So I'm not entirely sure if that's something going on with him. It takes a while to get that right brace on. It's like bionic. He was Jones not working in the warm-ups on Friday night because he was getting help from the trainer to get kind of his equipment on and everything. So I don't know if but he's still getting reps. So I don't really think it's impacting him really all that much, if at all. My assumption is that they just have enough trust and faith in Jones that he can play wherever, whenever, however they need him to play in a moment's notice, because he's mature, he's athletic, he has looked good. And so they seem to treat him like a 30-year-old veteran who's done it all, and maybe he can do that, but he's still a second-year guy to me, Dave, that has not played a ton of football and was a pretty raw guy out of college with 17 starts at Georgia. I think he's a guy that should be getting more reps. My assumption is that they just think he can just, he play wherever, whenever they need to put him somewhere, and he'll be good to go. And that's why they really not, paid much mind about him playing left tackle.
How much do you think is a byproduct of them wanting to slow roll Fautano much in the same fashion that they did Broderick Jones during his rookie year?
I don't know.
And how many times is Fautano going over to left tackle? None? Barely
0.
none?
No, it's literally 0. He's not taking a single snap at left tackle. It's been 100% at right tackle, which I am fine with. If you want to be a right tackle, then make him your right tackle and rep him like crazy at right tackle. So, I don't know. It's still trying to get a read on it. Fautano looked good. I was watching, in a one-on-one O-line, D-line Friday night. He's just so explosive off the football with that big lower half. It's really hard to get on his edges on the outside, at least. He's able to seal the arc well. Herbig, had no success against him. The one weakness is, it's probably pretty common for rookie tackles, and Jones had this issue late in the season last year, was being beat inside on some inside counters, and Nick Herbig dusted off. Remember the inside spin Herbig was working on in the offseason, had that video? He showed that one. It was
Watt calls it an ice pick.
Ice pick.
Ice pick spin.
Yeah, because I think the ice pick comes from when you finish that spin with your hand, like I think your backside hand, you put the ice pick out so the lineman can't recover and get back into your body. I think that's the ice pick part of it that Dwight Freeney, you've coined or really kind of made famous. So yeah, that was a really nasty move there. So I think Fautani has had a bit more issues on the inside, but he's strong, he's explosive. Had a false start today, just cleaning those things up as you get into camp and you're tired and making sure you're good mentally. But to me, there's certainly starting material for Troy Fautanu.
All right. Well, I'll only bring this up again if you're wrong.
Okay.
In typical terrible folks, this one's going to run a little bit long today. I'm going to warn you right now. I have questions.
Okay.
True or false? Broderick Jones will play snaps at left tackle in the first preseason game.
Oh man, that's a good question. I wish I had a good answer for that. Right now, I will say no, based on current events.
Okay. All right. We'll move on from there. All right. What about the other kids? Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick.
Yeah, that Frazier looked better against the Bull and Fehoko. It's like one rep of him getting a bull rush from him, from Fehoko and Friday Night Lights. And that was, I think, better overall. McCormick's strong. I think he's had a good camp overall. He refits his hands. He's got a really just kind of functionally strong guy that is hard to run through. I want to see, how well he can defend the edges. I think that might be the concern with him when you get into game action as you kind of work some of these sets that Pat Meyer teaches. I still have some concern there. I have that concern with kind of all the rookie linemen, so it's not exclusive to McCormick, but I know that, guys will try to probably rush on his shoulders more than down the middle because he's big and strong and it's going to be hard to go through. So it's been good though overall. Nobody, Dylan Cooks looked fine. He had some good reps against Leal, but there's not been that maybe standout performance from a backup guy. I think Spencer Anderson has looked good. He's gotten a ton of reps. When Masai Malu gets days off, it's really been Anderson reaping the benefits from that the most. So that's been good for him, but there's no really new takeaway for the offensive line right now.
Spencer Anderson might be an offensive player at the end of the preseason that logs the most snaps, right?
Could be up there. Because he's playing both. He's really the only guy moving around. Usually you get into camp at this point and guys are playing multiple spots, and granted, knock on wood, the line's been healthy, and so that's probably helped keep guys in place, but we've really seen very little movement. Again, Jones occasionally will go to left tackle, but that's rare. it's really only been Anderson playing left guard and right guard, but he's not played any tackle, not played any center, besides the occasional snaps in very early practice, 1v1, not in team or anything like that. So, we'll see if he can stick on this roster as a guard, considering there are so many guards in front of him, say Malu and Daniels and Herbig potentially, though he's still running first team center, and Mason McCormick.
When Zach Frazier was drafted, and then we got through the first part of free agency, and even through the later parts of free agency, I would have put down a lot of money that Zach Frazier would be the week 1 starting center. How would that bet be looking right now?
Shakier, not as strong as it would have otherwise. Herbig, again, has had a good camp that no one talks about, but he has been clean. He's been consistent. He's been rock solid against Benton in 1v1s. That's not concerned about Benton. I think Herbig is just doing a nice job. So not going to give up this job without a fight. Need to see it in game and have this thing keep rolling along. But yeah, I think the door's open. I mean, Herbig's starting, so I don't want to say the door's open, but I mean, the door is open for Herbig to remain in his starting center spot for week 1.
Give me an also ran that's fighting for a practice squad spot right now on the offensive line.
And also ran, so not a real young guy, like a more veteran.
Well, just someone that neither one of us would have on our 53-man roster right now.
Oh, let me think.
And not Spencer Anderson.
Yeah, no, I understand. Not a great set of names and candidates. There isn't a Dylan Cook that's kind of emerging the way that Cook began to show up for me in Friday Night Lights last year. It'd probably be one of the guards, maybe a Joey Fisher might be the name that I'd go to. But Anderson Hardy has really struggled. Hardy has not looked good at right tackle. I mean, Hamilton has been, I think, better at left tackle, but nothing really super stand out there. I'd probably give you Joey Fisher for being a strong interior lineman.
All right, so Dan Moore Jr. is not going anywhere right now, right?
As in being traded or being off his left tackle spot?
Right. No, I mean, because you remember there was that talk.
Sure.
About
I'm not.
Could they get to the end of the preseason and Dan Moore get shipped out?
Yeah, I'm not getting that sense right now. Again, some of that was dependent on health and dependent on Dylan Cook, and the things still to be continued. But that Dan Moore is still the first team left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
All right, let's move over to the defensive side of football. What have you learned about the defensive lineman? What have you learned about Logan Lee? And also, I'm learning that if he makes a roster or practice squad, he can long snap, right?
Yeah, he was a long snapper in high school at Orion High School. He played DN, he played tight end, he wrestled, he long snapped, and so he was getting a couple of reps today. There is no other true backup long snapper. Pittsburgh doesn't often carry 2 long snappers in the training camp anymore. I think Rex Sunahara was the last one that came in. So Lee did some field goals and punts, 1 or 2 reps. Coon still got the most of them. Tomlin did praise Lee for his 1 rep. But anyway, as much as I love talking long snapper, back to the defensive line itself. I would say Montravius Adams is the new Anthony Chickalo in the sense of he is that camp guy that always has good training camps, doesn't really always translate to great regular seasons, but Adams always getting pressure, always making the quarterback run, looks good in 1v1s. So it's been a good camp for Montravius Adams.
Learned how to spell Willington Prevleon.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear be on a football field and to hear men saying, way to go, Willington. They got to find a good nickname for him. I guess he doesn't go by Will, maybe, I don't know, WP or something. But yeah, I mean, he's been active and they rested guys today. Cam rested. And so it's harder to really make heads and tails of some of this stuff, but he was getting elevated reps with some of the first team guys and next to Montravius Adams for 1 rep in the team period today. So he's active hands. He's athletic. He can turn the corner. He can bend. He can get off of blocks. He had a tackle on Jalen Warren, even kind of this non-tackling session today. So, Prevlient's a guy that I think has good practice squad material, as does somebody like Lee. I think that will certainly be there if he does not make the 53. Liao continues to look good. But yeah, Prevliant might be that name that, like, does anyone even mention Prevalion's name? Because I occasionally will look on Twitter just to see if anyone else recognizing this guy. And like, I don't think anyone else has talked about him but me. But
yeah, you might be it. But I tell you what, barring something changing or injury or whatnot, he's probably going to be on my practice squad on this next 53-man roster prediction there. How about DeMarvin Leal, Loudermilk, that battle?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little apples and oranges because of the play style and Loudermilk not being the same body type and the way that he plays. I mean, Loudermilk is not going to have the success and sometimes those O-line, D-line drills that Leal might. Here's another weird thing they've done with Leal, and it's not always this. He went up against Washington for a couple of reps, but in those 1v1s, he just goes up against third stringers. Like he's gone up against Joey Fisher and Anderson Hardy, and he wins those battles, and that's great. But it's like, okay, I expected Leal to look good against Joey Fisher and Anderson Hardy. I want to see him get reps against Spencer Anderson and even some first-team guys. I want to see him go up against, I don't know, James Daniels. I just want to see what that looks like against some elevated guys. It's like he's beating up on guys that, you'd expect him to win against. And so I'm not sure what Pittsburgh is obsession. And they're generally pretty good about, Tomlin talked about this matching up, like-minded guys and guys that are in the same stage and roster spot, starters versus starters and backups versus backups and all that kind of stuff. And with Leal, it kind of gets funky in terms of, who they go up against. He's also playing a good amount of outside linebacker because lines are thin right now and he can do it, but I'd rather just kind of have him focus on playing true defensive lineman.
All right. Outside linebackers, is Marcus Golden the Marcus Golden of the Marcus Golden that we thought was the Marcus Golden? In other words, how does he look last two practices?
Yeah, he's been good. He worked in team on Friday and Saturday. So that first day was him just kind of getting back to the team. Didn't work on Thursday outside of individual session, but his rip move is there. He's still squatty, low to the ground, winning against backups, playing both sides, left outside and right outside. So picking up where he left off there for Marcus Golden. And again, Moon being out, more reps there for Golden. Kyron Johnson being out, again, more reps for guys like Golden. For Welshoff, who I think, he's the international exemption guy, but he's shown more than I thought he would. I do want to note here that Jacoby Windman, the off-ball linebacker of Michigan State's played a fair amount of edge snaps the last two practices. And actually, I didn't realize this. He had 18 and a half sacks in college.
Yeah.
At UNLV.
You and I talked about him during the 90 and 30, and he did, he does have experience on the edge and then switched over to more inside, I think, the last couple of years there. And also too, he had those injuries in there and all too. So he's got experience rushing the passer on the edge.
Yeah, and he made some plays in the backs on backers drill and some of the 1v1 type stuff. And so he's gotten some work there, which is good for his versatility. Struggled a bit in the one-on-one tackling. His angles weren't good and they were a little too sharp and was giving up the sideline. But yeah, I mean, good athlete, good hand use, pretty feisty and aggressive. So that's been good to see him get some extra reps as the lines, like I said, have been getting kind of thin at outside linebacker.
I thought I knew this. I know I knew this, but I forgot that I knew this. Marcus Golden only played 230 defensive snaps last year. I don't know why it feels like he played more than that.
Probably because his production was a guy who had more snaps. I mean, 4 sacks on that sample size. And how many pass rush snaps did he have? Probably 170 or something. Good production, pretty efficient overall. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't playing a ton late in the year and was inactive for the one game we talked about that. Right. So
he showed up in the play. He had to start in the playoff game. I think had a sack in the playoff game and got burned in that. But as far as I don't know, I looked at that on PFR earlier today because I'm starting to write up stuff on his contract and all. And I was like, oh man, I know I do that, but I forgot that it was even under well under 300, 230 snaps here. So, but that said, he looks like he never left, right?
Right, picking up where he left off. Nick Herbig as well, been really disruptive, been really, just forcing quarterbacks left and right. Took a couple losses to Fautani, but like I said, that inside spin and that one-on-one burned him. It was one of the best individual rushes and reps that I've seen in training camp this year in the 2 backs on backers that they did. So Herbig has been explosive, disruptive, typical Nick Herbig stuff.
All right, inside linebacker. Tell me something good about those. Look, Patrick Queen showing up all over this thing, blowing up screens. Yeah. I think that's a common narrative out of here. Yes. Tell me something about the backups behind him, Peyton and Peyton Wilson and all.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson's still been good. Better in backs on backers this time than he was Tuesday, the first day in pads. But could have seen a little bit more from him. But yeah, I mean, he's still been all over the place. He's played dime linebacker in some third down situations when they have some of the backups in. So he's gotten a ton of burn. He doesn't make the same mistake twice in one-on-one. He had a bad rep, and Tomlin called him back and did it again, and Wilson was much better. So he's a quick study, hard worker, athletic. All the traits and tools are there. I want to see hand use and work his hands a bit better. Not that I haven't seen it poorly. I just haven't gotten to evaluate it much, and I want to see that whenever game action happens. Mark Robinson, still a thumper. Nothing too crazy to note overall. Nothing really different for him. Obviously, some of the above the neck stuff that'll be harder for us to tell. It's kind of always seemingly the sticking point with Mark Robinson. And Tyler Murray, who's been struggling to find reps, but with Queen out today, and with Windman getting some edge reps, there was more opportunity for Murray. Thought he found the ball well. A couple play action passes in the flat he was able to sniff out, and so that was good. Don't talk about Tyler Murray too much. Tough path, but he had an active day in my notes today.
We will talk about this more on the Monday regular edition of the podcast, on the heels of us having about a 20-minute conversation on Cole Holcomb. We got news
right after, because of course,
nearly right after, about his contract getting adjusted. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We'll go over the details of that on Monday's show. But the long and short of that is, it certainly does not seem like, I'm using high level speculation here. It doesn't seem like Cole Holcomb's going to be ready for the start of the regular season. I'll tell you why. We're reading in between the lines like that later, but long story short, it feels like they're not going to have Cole Holcomb. So these backups like, Peyton Wilson and Tyler Matakevich and Mark Robinson, I mean, you could legitimately, your 5 on your 53 at this point, I would imagine, would be Queen, Landon Roberts, Peyton Wilson, Tyler Matakevich, and Mark Robinson, I guess.
Yep. If they're keeping 5, and they often do, there's your 5.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add about the inside? I think we about covered that, right?
Yeah, I think we covered that pretty well.
All right. Defensive backs. It's Beanie Bishop's world, and we're just all living in it. True or false?
Yeah, I think you could say that is true. I mean, he had done well. He's been getting first team reps. I'd been maybe a little less buying all the hype than others, because I wanted to see him make an individual standout play. He had gotten the reps. He had some tight coverage, some good battles versus Austin. And to be fair, I still haven't gotten to really watch a receiver DB 1v1 yet, because either they're not repping it or I'm watching a different backs on backers that day, whatever the case is. And so I may not have all the information that others do, but for him to get that pick 6 on Fields today, to figure out that screen pass, you knew something funky was coming. Pittsburgh aligned in a 4x1. It was a diamond to the right with trip receivers and Warren behind kind of the bottom of that diamond. And he went in motion and then motioned back out towards that trip side. And Fields wanted a screen to him with the 3 blockers in front, and Bishop on a blitz from the defense's left, the offense's right, timed it, read it, and threw the ball right into his stomach, the way that TJ Watt has picked off some passes that were kind of just absorbed and thrown right into his chest or belly. And Bishop caught it, came down, ran it back in the end zone for a touchdown. So that to me was like the real high level impact play that I've gotten to see from him.
What didn't Shandon Sullivan have something similar to that on an INT last year?
Oh, that's a good question.
What, his real close to the line of scrimmage like that went up?
Did he have a tip? It was the tip by Porter, I thought, that Sullivan had against Cleveland last year. Maybe there was another one. You saying preseason or regular season?
I thought it was regular season, that one that Shandon Sullivan had. I thought I think it was higher. I don't think it was more. I've seen the clip of the beanie. That was a nice play by him. That was very athletic, very instinctual, and it's hard to catch a ball like that point blank anyway.
Right. Yeah. Right. Throwing right at you. It's not like he's a big guy with giant frame. I think it was preseason that Sullivan did that, because in his pick that he had, it came against Cleveland. I think that was
going to find it.
One. Now, we're in the portion of us rambling and talking and looking up the clip. I think you're right. I just think that came in the preseason. That's what's in my head right now, and I'm 5 days in the camp and tired, so what is in my head right now is probably not the most trustworthy source. But
I'm watching the clip right. No, that's.
I mean, he had the interception against Cleveland last year.
Yeah, and I just saw that one.
That was the tip by Porter,
yeah,
right? Okay.
Yeah. I thought there was another one. I'm rolling through trying to. I can't. I'm not seeing it, so it might not have been regular season.
I want to say preseason.
All right. What
else?
Hold
on. I might have found it. Hold on. Hold on. It might be audio here. I don't know if audio is coming through. Yeah, all right, I'm sending this to you, Dave.
Okay.
We together, we got the clip right. It was the Bills game, preseason, off the edge. A little different than Beanie, but pretty much the same thing.
Okay. All right. So we're both right, sort of.
Yeah, we'll take it. That's the best kind of right. Technically right when we're both right.
It sure is. We don't get many of those these days, do we?
No, we don't.
All right. Tell me, what's going on with Corey Trice? Is there anything to read into that?
I mean, Terrell Austin had said, and it's feeling truer that, they were going to ramp things up and he has gotten more reps. At the start of camp, it was a lot of second team, Darius Rush and Kalen Barnes, and that has changed. There's been at least the mixing, if not really just kind of an actual reversal. And it's a little hard to say kind of who's in that second tier behind Porter and Jackson. I know you're going to ask me, and you have before, whenever Porter and Jackson go out in the preseason, assuming even if Porter plays, who will be the next two corners on the outside in? And I don't really know right now. If I had to guess at this moment, I'll say Anthony Averett and maybe Darius Rush. But it's really kind of been you've seen fewer snaps from Barnes and Rush, and I've seen more of Averett. I've seen more of Trice, and Trice especially the last few days, and really in some of the dime packages, the third down periods they work where Trice is coming on the field again. They're resting some guys. No Minka today in team, creates chances for others. But Trice seems to be picking up his snap count a little bit.
Who is the backup slot corner to Beanie right now?
Braylon Arnold, although with him being out the last 2 days, Thomas Graham has been getting work there, and he's got a couple of picks. He picked off Kyle Allen. So that's a guy that's making plays on the football, which has been fun to see.
And you've still been seeing some Deshaun Elliott in there in packages, right?
Not much, but today I know I spotted Elliott at least once in a team period of him playing slot with Casey, and I think actually Nate Dieters as the third safety in. You can figure that one out. But yeah, a little bit of Elliott, but it has still been Beanie Bishop most of the first team slot corner work.
You got anything on the new corner? Kyler McMichael?
He's been beat for touchdowns a lot. Now he's gone against some Van Jeffersons and I think Calvin Austins, and these are some of the non-tackling sessions. And so it's not a fun life for a corner, I'm sure, but he's in my notes a lot. And usually it's touchdown against Kyler McMichael.
Okay. All right. Any developments on safety? Minka, evidently they want to look at other guys, so he's been kind of getting slow roll the last couple of practices, according to Mike Tomlin and according to Minka. Minka said that trying to protect Minka from
GPS. His GPS is running hot, I guess.
Yeah, GPS. He's putting into miles on the GPS, so keeping that busy. But Mike Tomlin trying to protect Minka from Minka at this point of training camp here. What else you got on the safety position?
Ryan Watts had a pick Friday night. That's his first interception. It was not a great throw. It was actually a pretty poor ill-advised throw from John Rice Plumlee so he just never saw Ryan Watts, but he picked it off and housed it the other way. And just as a note on the hustle of some of these linemen on that Watts interception that was down the sideline, Broderick Jones and Spencer Anderson, who were not in the team period, attempted to run down Ryan Watts still from the sideline and try to prevent the pick six. So I appreciate the effort there. But yeah, I like Watts. Again, I've talked about it, making some plays and being versatile, some dime stuff there. I mean, you got two pretty similar body types in Corey Trice Jr. and Ryan Watts that could they be that, sub-package 6DB tight end eraser? When you're facing Travis Kelce later this year, could you try to deploy? When you're facing Mark Andrews twice a year, could you, deploy the Eagles and their athletic tight ends? You wonder if one of those guys, or ideally somebody like that, can step up and be a matchup guy the way that maybe Cortez Allen was on Gronk, a decade ago. But Cam Sutton, a ton of work at safety. Cam Sutton has been safety Cam Sutton really all week. He's worked individual sessions at safety. He's worked team period at safety. He had a pick Friday on a good read, jumping a ball over the middle and picked it off. Mike Tomlin literally said like huge play 47 times to Cam Sutton on the sideline there. So a lot of hype for that. Again, understanding suspension, can't be available, but they're getting work there. Safety is kind of thin. There aren't a lot of backups. And you had some corners that had to play safety last year. And maybe Pittsburgh's thinking if we got to make that move again, if a bunch of injuries strike, we want somebody that could do that. And Cam Sutton, when he returns, can do that.
All right, walk us through the couple of 7 shots, if you don't mind.
Sure. Let's go with the Friday session. Let me pull it up here. And that was all offense. They won. They scored touchdowns on the first 6 reps. The first play, miscommunication defensively. Might have been a little pick rub. Pat Fryermuth open, left flat. Fields hit him for the touchdown. Next one. This is live tackling, at least for the run plays, at least. Next one, George Pickens, short right side. Couldn't see exactly the route and who was around him, but Pickens made look like a tough catch for the touchdown from Fields. Next one, Najee Harris over the middle. Just got over the goal line for the touchdown. Fourth play, a leaping grab by Pickens, who got his toes down in the back left, kind of underneath the upright. That's from Fields for the touchdown again. Kyle Allen comes in. That was a really nice catch by Des Fitzpatrick out in front of his frame. Hauled it in for the 5th score. 6-1 was Michael Pirine just getting over goal line before Peyton Wilson could stop him. Ref ruled it a touchdown, so that is a touchdown. The 7th one was a fade ball to Pickens. There was a flag. I think it would have been DPI. I don't know how you want to score that one.
That was on Joey Porter, wasn't it? Or no?
I really couldn't even see the corner. That one, my view was obstructed, but probably because they put the starters back out because the offense was trying to go for the sweep, and Tomlin wanted the starters out for that one, and Pickens was the lone receiver. They were in 13 personnel in that play, so probably Porter. So I imagine that was a flag on him. It was not a touchdown. Just bottom line is offense dominated 7 shots on Friday night. And for Saturday, let me pull it up here. Let's see. I lost my place. First play was Justin Fields. Nothing there. Scrambled for a touchdown. I give that to the defense. Next one, Fields to Pickens over the middle on a Landon Roberts. Some covered stuff there for the touchdown. Next one was Fields again to Pickens for a touchdown. Right side against Deshaun Elliott. 4th one, Fields pass batted down over the middle. Again, that's been happening a ton in training camp. Next one, Kyle Allen. Really bad ball, bad read. Never saw Thomas Graham Jr., who picked him off. 6th one was Allen, just weird throwback to Washington that was ill-advised and incomplete. Averett on the coverage. And the last one, Kyle Allen scrambling as the Marvin Leal beat Anderson Hardy. And I give that for the defense again. So defense wins Saturday 5-2.
All right, real quick. Any notable special teams updates?
People love Cameron Johnston. Big applause for Cameron Johnston. He punted well. It wasn't like crazy well, but it was fine and consistent. And people
Did you just clap?
I didn't mean to, but that was me hitting my leg, and that was the sound. Okay. Yeah, there were literal applause. We get the sound effects here on the podcast. So, Johnston's punted. Lee long snapping. Chris Boswell. I don't mean to alarm people. I'm not alarmed, but he's missed some field goals. He missed a 46-yarder today. He missed field goals on the other session they had a couple days ago. Did make one from 50 yards out today, so that was good. But Boz, a couple of misses. Just want to note that.
All right. Any overarching thoughts, takeaways real quick from the last 2 practices? I know you're tired. We're an hour long here. Wrap it up.
Saturday was low key. It's really hard to evaluate. They're going to ramp things up Sunday, Mike Tomlin was saying, but Friday was just really fun, really intense. The backs on backers will be something that I'll probably remember for a long, long time. Just that environment, and really fun to watch Najee Harris and Jalen Warren go toe to toe and step up. And it's been fun to watch the offense respond. I mean, it almost feels like, I'm not saying this is happening, but the coaches are saying, hey, Landon and Patrick, go rile up, go poke the hornet's nest a little bit and just see how the offense responds. And the offense responded when Fields got hit earlier this week, and the offense responded when Queen and Roberts were going at it in backs on backers. So it's been really fun to kind of see the give and take.
All right, good job, Alex. I know this is the hardest, once again, the hardest one that we do because we're recapping kind of 2 practices loosely, if you will. But I think we covered a lot of players and the 2 practices here. You and I will be at it again about 24 hours from now, recapping the Sunday later afternoon practice at Saint Vincent College, and then the team will have a Monday off day. So until Sunday night, Let's see. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You guys know the rest from there. We got to get us out of here. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024 with Dave and Alex.